Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Breakthrough Advisor Podcast. I'm your host today, Randy Yost, a Senior Vice President, Advisor Development Consultant with Simplicity InsurMark. And joining me today is one of our very own with Simplicity, Mr. Jason Jenkins. Jason is, of course, a partner here at Simplicity and the Executive Vice President. So welcome, Jason. Thanks for joining us, man.
Randy, excited to be here with you today.
Absolutely. Well, I know we have a long history working together over the years, and certainly some of our listeners that are tuning in today know who you are. They've been to some of your trainings and events, helping them level up and get better at their craft, becoming really the best version of themselves, if you will. I know we talk a lot about that and, complete ownership, if you will. But for the listeners that are tuning in that maybe aren't familiar with you or that haven't been to one of your trainings, why don't we just kind of start from the beginning? Tell us a little bit about your background. Where are you from originally? How'd you get into the business? And why are you so passionate about what it is that we do here serving our advisor community?
I appreciate it, Randy. Thanks so much. Yeah. So my background, 28 years in the financial industry. So I grew up in San Diego. I love telling the story because I found myself going to college in Santa Barbara. So if you've ever been there, it's a beautiful place. I tried to do the 6-year plan. My parents made me do it in 4. And I got out of college just going, okay, what am I going to do? And someone says, I think you'd be great at selling life insurance. And I'll never forget. I was like, well, is that when somebody dies, there's a check? And so that's kind of where I cut my teeth, is in the life insurance industry. Fast forward, never really thought I'd be in the industry, got my MBA. And then that led me to taking it a little bit more serious, where I got my 65 and built out I think a pretty, good sized practice. Built a fintech company from that, which kind of how our paths crossed. But 2014 was my first opportunity to take my knowledge set of building a practice that had gotten to a point where almost, $50 million of new assets a year, but super efficient, super profitable. It was actually February of 14. And I was like, man, I really enjoyed this. And people were like, hey, we think you're pretty good at this. And really found a passion for empowering advisors that were interested about going to that next level. Why do I say interested? Because everybody wants it, but few really want to grab it and embrace it. And so I focused on that and really focused on the fintech company. And August 1st of 2018, almost 7 years ago, I joined Simplicity, and kind of here we are doing some really cool things, helping advisors.
Absolutely, man. Well, and I'm so glad you did, and I'm so glad that our paths have crossed. You're changing advisors' lives every single day. When I talk to advisors, and I'm talking about kind of what we do and how we help advisors, one of the things I always talk about is, hey, what would your life be like? And think about how that would transpire, if you will, is if you were able to double your revenue, double your income, and take twice as much time off. Having that process and being super efficient. I mean, that's a game changer. And I know we'll probably get into, some things about pairs here in a little bit, solutions, problems, et cetera. But, kind of when I think about it, advisors are always, and I love how you kind of set us up there. It's all about action, right? I mean, it's not that it's difficult, but it's hard, right? What are some of the things that you're seeing top advisors do right now that maybe some other advisors are missing?
Yeah, so you kind of picked up on a quote that I like to say often is life is
I
not.
do pay attention.
I like it. I like it. Life's not complicated. It's just hard, and that's the way it's been designed. And because it really weeds out the few. But going back to your question, what's the difference between a top producer and a non-top producer? What I've discovered in that is a couple things. The first is mindset. There's no doubt about this. And we all operate from a set of principles, and it's those principles that drive the energy that's happening. So one is the mindset. Second is, do they have a process? And I would tell you, like, that's the biggest thing is, do they really truly have a sales process that no matter where the lead comes in from, referral, workshop, radio, doesn't matter, it falls into this defined process that can be felt. And then the third piece is the ones that are elite are the ones that focus on coaching and improving their skill sets. They know that they can always get better. I think of the many advisors that have been to the advanced sales training that are doing 30, 40, 50, $80 million a year premium going, they're like the ones in the front row with the notes going, I know that I can get better. So those are the things is the mindset, meaning like, what do you choose to operate on? Second, that pushes itself into a process. And then what are the skills that sit around it?
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
If we're honest with ourselves, right, we can always get better. And I think the ones that really push themselves are the ones that continue to excel, continue to grow, that growth mindset, believing in themselves, knowing that it can be done, et cetera, right? What's the biggest shift that you've seen in advisor behavior or mindset over the last maybe year or so? Our business seems to be on a ever-changing trajectory. 5 years ago was a completely different world than 10 years ago, or when you started almost 30 years ago. Our business is just continuing to evolve and change. And as time goes on, it seems those changes happen quicker. But just to repeat that question, what's the biggest shift that you have seen in advisors' behavior or mindset over the last maybe 12 months or so?
Yeah, there's two sides to that coin. I would say that distraction's probably been the biggest one because of technology, because of these AI and these new tools that are coming. That shiny object syndrome is actually getting enhanced. Like we're oh well, what about this and what about this? So there's a lack of concentration and continuing to simplify and execute. Like business is about execution. Business is like, do I solve problems and do I solve it better than my competitors? It's really that simple. And all of these tools can come in and be like, oh, it can do this. And, it's like, all this great things that, yes, they have a place, but that is either distracting you or it's enhancing you. That's the two. It's either causing a distraction or it's enhancing your ability to execute on the relationship. It's the one thing that I like to say, which is the most important is you need to focus on mastering the art of human connection. Like that is the most important skill set of the future because if you don't, then all of this other technology, because it's kind of a commoditized industry, like a lot of others, will just kind of take over. So that's what I've noticed really ramp up, and I think we're on the front side of it. So it's just not going to slow down. So advisors that can filter their way through it and say, "This is my process, and I'm going to plug in this technology where it's needed." But I got to make sure that I'm connecting and personalizing that the whole way. So that's what I'd say. It's like a double, it's a coin. It's got two sides to it.
One of the questions I always kind of lead to is, you know, some advisors don't know really where to start. They want to do it, but they don't know where to start. How do you coach advisors through fear or hesitation, especially in volatile markets? It's a different time, right? Yet it's still the same. How do you coach advisors through that fear and that hesitation to get out there and take these steps to build that dream business that they desire?
Yeah, a very timely question. So I have this past weekend, I had a chance to spend time with my mentor. So I met him on my MBA program. His name's Dr. Senyo Ajibaloso. He just had amazing impact in my life then and today. And I'll never forget that he said this to me. I think it was 2006. He said, Jason, when fear shows up, the best way to fight it is to just take action, is to push into that resistance. So how does that correlate when markets are volatile and clients are scared or whatever? You have to lean into that. Like you have to make, one, reminding them about the plans that have been built and designed that were there to weather these kind of situations. So when fear shows up, you're on the phones, you're communicating with it, you're leaning in action. It is when we don't take action in life, right? Which is true, Randy. That's where we begin to manifest these outcomes. Well, what about this? And worst case scenario. And what does that only happen maybe 3% of the time? I don't know the stat, but and we realize like, man, I really made a bigger deal of something that never came to fruition. So I think that's the thing is that an advisor's job is to create an environment for their clients to win. So if you're truly building the right plans, that you're like, you have 100% conviction that you're like, when we built this 3, 5, 10 years ago, whatever, that still stands today, then you should embrace that with everything that you have and all the conviction. And then that makes the fear go away because that's what your clients are paying you for is not just the allocation, but also kind of being that mental coach during those times, reminding them that it's going to be okay. And if there has to be adjustments, well, then you're able to adjust it with great confidence. So that to me is what I've learned over time when the fear wants to show up.
At the end of the day, we're really, solving problems, right? Solving problems that the client has. And, we talk about solving problems. Tell us a little bit about your take on, how problems and solutions come in pairs. I think that's one thing that in one of the last trainings, and I've seen you literally half a dozen times, do training, and every time I pick up something new and something different, it continues to evolve. It just continues to get better. But talk to our audience and our listeners a little bit about, problems and solutions and how they come in pairs. I think it's an important thing for people to realize, because some folks naturally are just good at that. But
Yeah.
fill our listeners in a little bit about that concept.
Yeah. So the one thing that I love about how I coach and what I teach is it really is about mastering the basics, because if we believe that the future is about mastering the art of human connection, then the subset to that is then how do I really truly become the craft of the like mastering the communication, the art of that communication. So it's about helping people see the solution and pass the problem. So we all have like a current environment into a desired environment. So every one of your clients comes in and says, well, here's where I'm at. This is where I want to be. And what sits in the middle are the challenges and the problems. That's why they're sitting in your office or on a Zoom call. And so, Randy, what you're talking about is that problem where we all exist really comes in pairs. And so this is what I talk about. So what do I mean by that? Problems come in pairs. They come with a fact and they come with a feeling that's associated to that. So I'm either doing something, right, Randy, that's causing me to feel this way, or I'm not doing something that's causing me to feel that way. So both of those could be a fact, right? Like that's materializing. And it's the feelings behind that that's causing me to be in the current situation. Where most people go wrong is they spend 90% of the time on the fact and only 10% of the time on the feeling, when it's reverse. I mean, if you look at any research that's been done out there, and there's been a lot, and just kind of intuitively, that the fact, I always like to say, belongs to the world. Like that's just a fact, but the feeling belongs to the person. And that's where you want to know. You want to know, why do they feel that way? What's causing that? What are the consequences of that fact? That's where that takes place, so that when you've really diagnosed that problem, now the solution also comes with a pair, because you're going to present a new fact or a new plan, and that new plan is going to be counter emotionally to the problem that's taking place. So you want to match those up. So when you think about it, it's kind of a really simple way to walk into the conversation. So I'm hunting for the facts that the problems are associated, which is the art of the questions. But really, how do I pull out the feeling to go, oh, okay, got it. They want that to go away. And I begin to think about how I help my clients make those feelings go away, which are just naturally back to the plans. And you find yourself spending more time talking about the destination and the feeling of the destination than so much the facts. They become more quiet. Yeah, they're a part of it, but it's usually reversed the other way. So that's the way I like to think about it, because it's the right way to be having that conversation.
Yeah, I think the whole concept of, logical versus emotional. How are people making, decisions? I think that brings us in. It's a good pivot into the next question I had here for you today. How are client expectations changing, and how should advisors adjust their approach?
So they're drastically changing. I think for all of us, like if we all just kind of put our consumer hat on, because of technology and the access of information, I'm going to go back to this framework. Like as you listen to this today, you will consciously and subconsciously go through this framework of decision making. Like, hey, I'm here and I want to get here. Even if like going to lunch, like, okay, I'm hungry. How do I, feel full? Okay, like is the challenge is the still the same? What do I need to go from current to desired is one thing. I need information. I want to make an informed decision. So the only difference of where I go to lunch to hire an advisor is the risk associated to the decision. So the higher the risk, the more information that I need. So if that's true, which it is true, welcome to these fun little things called phones and the internet. I have all the information in the world that I could possibly ever imagine. So therefore, how do I, Jason Jenkins and my brand get back in front of that information or leverage that the right way? And that's really, that conversation. So now all of a sudden consumers are like, their attention span is so much shorter and they're expecting a more personalized approach. So the research that's out now that says the following, that we begin to size somebody up within about 7 seconds. Think about it, 7 seconds, because we've now programmed ourselves with these dopamine hits as we scroll and as we look for information. It's just so, so fast. So you have shorter windows of time for the person to say, you know what, I'll give you another 30 seconds. I'll give you another 30 seconds. So that's just the world that we're operating in. And the other part of that expectation is if I decide to do it, they want it to be personalized because your competitors are delivering that higher expectation. So it's the world that we're living in, and it's only going to continue to go down that path. So you got to make sure that you're building a business that is there and can meet those expectations, not just about acquisition, but also the continuation of the relationship.
Yeah. Someone told me, hey, we're in a customer experience economy. And, it's all about that experience and their expectations. What are those? Having an awareness around that it's not about all the things I can do for you. That's great. And you do need to be, competent in your area of expertise, right? You can't just go out there and wing it. But being able to convey that information, getting the person on the other side of the table to listen up. I see these debates where people are talking one way or the other, and they're just throwing fact bombs at each other. And you listen to the conversation, you're like, you know what, you're both right. However, maybe the approach to get quickly connected,
Yeah.
could be beneficial. How do you train advisors to build trust quickly with their clients in the very first conversation?
So one of the things that I love doing is we coach on a tool, which I know you're familiar of, Randy, is the founder story. It is the one tool and the fastest way to take a stranger or a group of strangers and build trust within 2 minutes. And there's nothing more powerful. Randy, I mean, how many testimonials have you received from your advisors? Like, hey, I went to this advanced training that Jason did. I got my founder story and I used it, right? Like just the power of telling your story, but in the context that they envision themselves inside that story, because it's all about effective storytelling. And so it's like, hey, Randy, before we get started here today, can I just share with you, what brings me here and why I love what I do? And people are like, well, that's interesting. And you begin to unfold that story. So 100%, people need to find their founder story and to be able to communicate it. And what it's not, and this is, I hope if anyone's taking notes, it's not your resume. If I want your resume, I'd go on LinkedIn or your website. That's not it. It needs to open the heart. If you had to answer one question, why do you love what you do? That is what the founder story is. And when it's done properly, there's nothing more lethal, because now all of a sudden strangers are like, you're inviting them into to whatever that environment is. So now all of a sudden they become more vulnerable. They become more honest, because 80% of your job is just getting people to unlock their arms and simply do what? Trust you to be like, I'm here to help, but I need you to be completely transparent, put it all on the table. But that's hard because they've maybe had a bad experience and they simply don't know you. So I get pretty passionate about this one because I get too many testimonials from advisors going, I wish I'd have met you, 15 years ago and using this.
Oh, absolutely. I've had advisors come to me and say, hey, I've had trouble opening up some of my clients. They're a little bit guarded, if you will, and by using the Founders Club story, it's kind of opened the doors to, hey, let me go first and share
That's right.
something vulnerable. And then they become, much more open to sharing not just about themselves, but how they think, what's important to them, how certain things make them feel. And you have a husband and wife couple at the table. They may have different ways that they think and feel about certain things. And you've got to be able to address both concerns to have a cohesive, plan so that action is taken, because all the great knowledge in the world means nothing without action. Just sticking on the founder story for just a minute. would you be open to sharing with us today your founder story and give us an example of a founder story?
Yeah, so kind of in a little bit of brevity, my founder story was in 2009. I had the opportunity to sit down with a couple that came into my office, Richard and Cleo. Richard was he played the clarinet for the San Diego Orchestra. Cleo was a nurse, and so they came into one of my workshops, did a total review, and noticed that they had a life insurance policy that had built up a decent amount of cash value. I asked, so what's the purpose? I said, hey, it's legacy for my two daughters. And so again, still being in great health, did a 1031, took it from $250,000 death benefit to $1 million, didn't change premiums. Everyone was happy. And then 2 years later, Richard had a major stroke. And so, visited him at the hospital. It was one of those situations, Randy, you've heard me tell the story. Young man, I'd never experienced that. And so Cleo comes running up to me saying, thank you so much for, the advice that you had given. Richard had survived that stroke. And so 2 weeks later, I found myself in their home. Uh, and he was just mumbling because the stroke was really bad, thank you. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is really intense. But I was beginning to really touch the impact of my planning for the first time in my career. So I'd started in 97. This is in 2009, just to put a timeline. I So fast forward, Richard had passed away. He had another major stroke about a year or so later after that. But I found myself back in that room delivering $1 million tax-free check. But this time the two daughters were there. And I'll never forget Randy leaving that house. I remember getting in my car, just like holding the steering wheel and just reflecting like, man, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like anytime someone comes across my path, I will not back down about what I feel is the right plan. Because sometimes you can feel like that. And so, yeah. And so I kind of share with people, I'm like, hey, so the reason I share with you my story is this is what brings me here. This is why I love what I do. And it's why I'm so passionate about empowering people or having actionable knowledge, not just information, but empowering you with like, what should I be doing with the right information? So that's kind of a quick sketch of my founder story that I told at workshops. I told it like if I met you one-on-one, like if a referral came in, I would just stop and say, hey, Randy, I know that you were referred by Josh. If it's okay with you, can I just share with you what brings me here every day and why I love what I do? And people are like, yeah. And I mean, I've watched it just move in these beautiful conversations. And now all of a sudden, because I created that environment, they're just like, oh my God, well, let me tell you this, and let me tell you this, and this is why I'm here. And you're like, it just makes your job that much easier because you focused on human connection. You need to remember this is that trust has two components. Trust has connection and credibility. Both have to coexist in order for somebody to truly have trust. What we normally do is we lean on credibility. Hey, I wrote a book, I'm on TV, and like we just kind of vomit all of the facts, and people are like, cool, but I don't think I like you. So guess what? I'm never going to do business with you. It doesn't matter. You could be the smartest person in the room, but I got a lot of options. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't like you. I don't trust you. So guess what? Congratulations on all your success, but I'm going to keep searching because no, there's just not a connection to that. And that's what people miss. So you have to connect first to open up the heart where people are like, yeah, so what do you have to say? So it's all about, yes, I like this person. I can connect with this person because the two questions that when you meet someone for the first time, they want to know who are you first and then why you second. And who you are, like I said, is not your resume. It's why do you care? Why do you love what you do? Like that's because if not, I'm going to go here and you're going to get replaced by a computer. Seriously. Like that's just where it's at. So it gets me a little fired up when I start talking about
Well, it's interesting that was literally my next question that I was going to ask you is what fires you up most about working in our industry today? And I think obviously, one of the easy answers is we can help a lot of advisors.
it. Yep.
You've personally helped a lot of advisors. And one of the ways that we've done that with our advisor group is these, trainings that you host called the Advanced Sales Training, or as we call AST for short, right? Would you be open to telling us a little bit about what an advisor might be able to take away from a training like that, an event like that? I mean, we're in a room, phones down, right?
Yeah, that's
and
right.
and I've seen you're not shy to call people out. In the training, we hold people accountable, right? It's total ownership, right? You want to be there, but maybe tell us a little bit about what we cover in an advanced sales training and how some of our advisor listeners might be able to benefit from that.
Yeah, so I'm assuming, if you've been in this business long enough, you've been to events and other training events that have been done, and that one of the things that, if I can just kind of say I'm most personally proud of is that this training is completely transferable to whomever it is and it's relevant. We've had advisors come in that are brand new, don't know anything about the business and explode their business in 24 hours. I mean, 24 months. Then we have advisors that are like, hey, I'm doing 30, 40, $50 million a year of new assets. You can't, I've heard it all. You can't teach a dog, old new tricks. And you're like, they get there and they're like, hey, when can I come back? Because they watch their business explode. Because the truth of the matter is that great training is not personality driven. It's principle driven that supports the skills. What do I mean by that? Like we all operate from a set of principles. So what are those principles? Is it servanthood? Am I choosing to serve? Am I choosing to connect with them? Because you got to realize what's in your mind and in your heart comes out of your mouth. People can feel the energy. Are you trying to help me or sell me? And then the core skills that we focus on teaching that we can all get better at is storytelling, asking the right questions, listening, and presenting. So all of those skills we teach you inside advanced sales training, then to ultimately push inside your business to execute. You do that, nothing can stand in your way. I don't care if they've got AI, robot, advisors, whatever happens. There's always, as long as humans are on this planet, we're going to want to connect, but you got to be able to focus on that. And so that's at the heart of what I teach and why I love teaching it, because once you understand that the skill set, because it is a skill set of mastering the art of human connection, then you're like, I desire that. So that's the foundation. And so what the expectations are is what I just laid out is what you say and how you say it. And when you say it, it matters. So how do you go through your discovery questions? How do you listen better for what they're actually telling you or not saying, so that it allows you to connect faster to where the person feels the difference? Because there's something I like to call as trust equity, where somebody says, well, I understand that. That makes sense. But the ultimate trust equity, where like the cup is full, is when somebody goes, but that feels right. See, I could understand what Randy might be telling me. And I'm like, well, that makes sense for somebody else because that doesn't feel right to me. So, and there's skills. And so that's the thing that we love about it. So if you're, obviously you're watching this and you're like, well, that's interesting. There's not one person that does not benefit from coming. In fact, the last one we did a couple of weeks ago, we had someone there for their sixth time. And you just track their production and it just goes up because they realize that the better that I get at my job, which is a skill set, well, that's naturally going to produce more results. So the simple correlation, I want to learn to play golf better. I want to work out better. Well, you got to go what? You got to go practice. You got to go revisit it. And so why I love it so much is I watched for the last 28 years of my career, been super passionate about wanting to be the best. But it was the mindset that when I began to move away from what I'm doing to like who I'm becoming, it allowed me to focus in the right areas. So yeah, I could talk about it for 2 hours, as you know, Randy, but
Well, hey, and towards the end here, when we wrap up, we'll come back to the advanced sales training and let our listeners know how they can tune in and join us for some of these upcoming events. We do these recurring throughout the year. I'm a big believer in them. I've sent, just to share a story with you, one of my guys that I sent, him, we'll call him Ron. He went to one of your events and I sent him there a little, to be honest, it was the first one I had sent anybody to, a little apprehensive. He was doing about 45 million, I think, a year in production. And I was like, what's he going to learn? This guy's a mega producer. He walks away. He's got it literally looked like he was creating fire on the front row, like up there. He was taking notes so rapidly. It was like 35 pages of notes, fired through it. And he walked up to me after the event and said, hey, I I got to tell you, this is the single best training I've ever been to in my 30-year career. I took 35 pages of notes. I think I can double my business. You know, he's gone not once now, but twice. He's increased to a $60 million a year number. He's got his eye on the bullseye. He wants to go to 100, and he just keeps getting better at his craft. And it's because of these type of basic principles. And, he spends a lot of money on marketing. I don't know if you've ever had advisors that spend money on marketing and say, hey, well, I don't know, this program doesn't work or that one doesn't work. This is the foundation, folks. For all of our advisor listeners, I wouldn't spend another penny on marketing until I attend one of these events and put this stuff into action, because you will convert more folks. Sometimes growing or doubling your business. What if you converted twice as many people as you normally convert? That conversion is such a key component of moving. I've got just a couple more questions for you.
Yes.
What is a common mistake that you see advisors make that's costing them opportunities?
Well, maybe just picking right up on what you just discussed is them not focusing on the right skills that make them better, and that kind of gets camouflaged by most other trainers or organizations. Just like, well, go just spend more, go do more, and that's really not the right answer. The right answer is exactly this conversation. Like, how do you get better? So, like, what if you could increase your conversions 10, 15, 30, 40, 50%? Because we see it all the time. Like, that's the biggest mistake, is like, so many times I see advisors, I like to call it the mountaintop experience. I'm like, you get into this business and you get some success, and then all of a sudden the business it overtakes you. Like, Randy, how many times have you talked to somebody like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm pissed, I don't know how to get off of this. Like, it feels hopeless. Let me raise my hand. I was there. I was like, I'm not having fun. Like, this is not what I want, but I have to, because I have kids to raise and college tuition and retirement and all of this. And so there's a sense of, again, just being brutally honest and vulnerable, hopelessness. I was there. It wasn't until I started going, okay, there has to be a better way to do this, that I started to think about these skill sets. So that's the biggest thing, is you will stay frustrated, you will stay worried, fear will run you, and all of those feelings, until you start going to the person in the mirror going, okay, this guy's got to get better. Like, how does this guy get better? Because when you begin to do that, that's where things change. I've seen it hundreds of times. So the reason I'm excited to be on here and I get so passionate is I'm like, the solution's like right here. Now,
Right here.
it's not complicated. It's just hard. So yeah, you've got to work at it, but the structure is literally right there. And so that's what I've come to learn is, as you know, I like to say in the training, everyone's going to hear my voice, but few are going to listen, meaning they're going to go do the actual work. But when they do it, freedom is on the other side. So if you're watching this, like, that's me, Jason. Maybe I'm having some success, but I know I'm not at my full potential. Or you're watching this and you're like, Jason, you just described me. I'm tired, I'm frustrated. And guess what? You could be doing big numbers, because I've met those same guys and gals. You could be doing big numbers, but behind the scenes, the cost is overtaking you, the pressure, the 3 offices, the employees. Guess what? There is another path. There is a path to freedom. You have to simplify. You have to focus on it. And when you do so, all of a sudden you're like, my God, I actually really love this business, because you've taken control of it. You have to think backwards into, what am I trying to build? Some advisors want to have 5 offices and all these employees, and some are like, Jason, show me a plan that gets me working Monday through Thursday and I make $1 million a year. I'm like, wonderful. Why don't you show up to AST? Because, like, literally that's the blueprint. Like we're going to keep it really simple. So I know that there's a lot there in my response, but I'm so convicted about it more now, Randy, than ever, because time and time again, I see advisors' lives like changing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing it too. And we thank you for all the work that you're doing to help us, to help our advisors grow their businesses. I mean, lives are changing.
They are.
When somebody doubles their revenue or triples, we've seen people quadruple and even quintuple their practice, which is just crazy to think about. When that happens, I mean, they're creating a completely different lifestyle for them, for their family, kids, parents, all the above, right? It's a massive change, obviously, and clearly, listeners. I know you're listening in, but if you could see this man, I think he must be drinking from the fountain of youth or something. He looks great. But if you could go back to your younger self when you were first getting into the business, what's maybe one thing that you would do differently to get ahead quicker? Because we have a lot of younger advisors that are coming into the business that are looking to build, scale, and ultimately capitalize, right? We talk a lot about that here at Simplicity. But maybe what's one thing that if you could go back in time, and what's one thing you would do differently as you approach this business?
I love this question. I would answer it as the following. So I feel like I turned 50, and when I look back on my career, I'm really proud of a lot of things. I feel like I've been pretty successful, financially and all those things that kind of get measured. But if I could go back to the younger version of Jason and in place in his mind and his heart, one thing, I would 20x what I have today, like the actual stuff. It would be the following: Jason, don't focus on what you're doing, but focus on who you're becoming. That would be it. I would be so dogmatic about, it is not what you're doing, but it's who you're becoming, because that lens changes your perspective of everything. Now, all of a sudden, I begin to lean in going, okay, then what skills do I need? What mindset do I need? Because Randy, there was times like I shared with you and I was honest, like I was frustrated. I was, I'm that type A, I'm not going to quit. But there was times I was like, this is just not fun. So I was allowing those outside situations to create fear. If I, again, just for full transparency and all this, but if I would have focused on Jason Jenkins, who is he both physically, mentally, professionally, I would have the skills that I told you. How can I become a better listener? How can I become a better communicator? How can I become a better presenter earlier on in my career? Oh, geez, it would have been, like I said, 10x. It'd have been a better journey along the way. I've been married, going to celebrate 26 years this coming week. And I had a great marriage, but it would have been even better and with the kids. And so I love that question, because at the end of the day, that's really the only question that matters. It is. And that's why I always say that standards plus habits equal results. You've heard me say this a ton of times, Randy, is that if you're not happy with the result that you're getting in your life, just reverse engineer it. Look at the habit. You're doing a little too much of this and not enough of this, right? That's genuine. That's what's generating this. So the one question I get asked all the time, well, then Jason, what's the standard? The standard's what you're willing to tolerate. And that's the key. Goals are great, but we rise and fall to the standard. And the standard is set by our systems, which is our habits. You look at your life, because everybody on this call, you, me, everybody that's listening to this, there's a result that you're like, I wish that was a little bit better. That it's really that simple. And the more that I would have laid that into my life, both personally and professionally, man, I would have been in a different place. I mean, I'm proud of where I'm at. Uh, and I got here because of those challenges and struggles. But to answer your question, I've been like, listen here, young Jason Jenkins, just focus on becoming the best version. That's what I would say.
I absolutely love it. And man, I appreciate you so much for joining us here today on this episode of the Breakthrough Advisor podcast. You just continue to give so much to all of us here within Simplicity and our advisor community. I love what you said about standards and habits. One standard, one family, one simplicity. And folks, if you're interested in kind of tuning in and picking up some of these skills that Jason was talking about earlier, we host an entire training around this for advisors. Whether you're getting into the business, whether you've been in the business a while, I can guarantee you that you're going to take something away that's going to make your business better and make your life better. I love how you bleed and blend all of this together with business and family, life, the things that you're doing there. And it's contagious, man. It's absolutely contagious. So I'd encourage the listeners to reach out to Simplicity us here and give us a call. Reach out and ask for an advisor development consultant. They can, of course, absolutely connect you with one of our upcoming ASTs. We do these several times a year. And I would just encourage you not to wait. The time is now to start the evolution of turning over and living that best life, creating your best business. And it starts with these foundational components of human connection. So anything that you'd like to leave with us here today as we wrap up this episode of the Breakthrough Advisor, Jason?
I just want to underscore what you just said. I believe that you deserve it, and the people around you deserve your best version. They do. Like, you owe it to your community. You owe it to the people around you for you to become your best version. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. And folks, that's it for this episode here of the Breakthrough Advisor podcast. Tune in to our next episode coming up soon. And of course, Jason, thank you again. We look forward to connecting with you soon, man. I know I'll see you at the next AST. So, folks, have a great day. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Breakthrough Advisor podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of InsurMark. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only.